Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we're going to head over to Copenhagen in Denmark and revisit one of the famous Danish gypsy breweries. So for this one we're going to go to Mikkeller and we're going to try the Mikkellerberger one, which is an American pale ale. And this guy was brewed for the hotel Mikkellerberger in Berlin in Germany, and apparently it's a very nice beer, so it should be quite an interesting one for us to try. But as is usual then with my beer reviews, we'll go through a very short history of the Mikkeller brewery. I've done a number of these videos for you before, so it will be very short. As always, the brewery website is in the video description for you below, as is the link to my other Mikkeller reviews, so go and check that out if you are interested. But anyway, Mikkeller, as I mentioned to you, is one of the famous Danish gypsy breweries, and this was founded by Christian Keller and Mikkel Bjergso, although it is now run exclusively by Bjergso, who used to be a teacher. And he basically used to visit this bar on his way home from teaching every day, and he wondered why in Denmark he couldn't get a lot of the good beers that were coming out in America, and he decided really that the only way to do it was to get beers like this was to brew them himself. But again, this brewery is very influenced by the American craft beer movement, and it basically started out as the home brewing experimentation of Christian and Mikkel, and it grew from there. They apparently presented their beer group that they were in. This was also what laid the foundation for To Øl, the other famous Danish gypsy brewery, and also Evil Twin Brewing, which is run by Mikkel's brother. But they actually don't, since they're a gypsy brewery, they don't own their own brewery, but they rather brew at a variety of sort of host institutions or host breweries that you like, and these are in the USA, Norway, Scotland and Belgium. Most of their beer is in fact brewed at the De Proef Brouwerij in Lochristenhoeve in Belgium, and their home base as such is actually the Mikkeller bar in Copenhagen, and they also have a collaboration bar with To Øl, whose founders are former students of Mikkel's, and again they're actually hugely experimental, and to date they've brewed probably near enough 1,000 different types of beer. They do have a few of them which they brew quite regularly, but most of them, as is the case with To Øl as well, most of them are kind of brewed as one-offs, and that's the sort of thing that you find with gypsy breweries. That's the idea behind it, is that essentially it gives you a hell of a lot of room to experiment with. But that's your brief history of the To Øl brewery. It's a very interesting one, and you get a whole host of different beers out of these guys. But I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. So as you can see, it's got a nice kind of it's got a nice sort of wolf thing on it there. I don't know what it is meant to be underneath, but it's designed by the regular artist at Mikkeller. The guy's name evades me now, but it was also designed by one of the artists from the Mikkellerberger Hotel in Germany as well, in Berlin, and they served it. The idea, I think it was to celebrate an anniversary of the hotel that this one was brewed, and they started serving it in their bar, but of course Mikkeller distributed it to their other sort of favourite salesman and all of this sort of thing. But just to tell you a little bit about the beer itself, I did take down the sort of hop and malt profile of this one. It's a 5.2% American pale ale. It was brewed for the Mikkellerberger Hotel in Berlin in Germany, as I said, and the beer's hopped with a mixture of American and New Zealand hops. It has Columbus, Citra, Simcoe and Amarillo from the US, and then it has some Nelson Sauvin hops from New Zealand in it as well. So that's really all you really need to know about this beer. This one was in fact brewed at the De Proef Brouwerij in Lochristenhoeve in Belgium. As I said, most of Mikkeller's beer is brewed there, but you do get some that aren't. There's very few and far between actually. I don't know if I've had one that was brewed at another place apart from obviously I Hardcore You, which was the Brewdog collaboration, and that was brewed in Aberdeenshire. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. So really interested to try this one. Again, this is one I've picked up from my Mikkeller dealer, who is Lewis Patterson, the owner of Thistle News in Aberdeen, and he's my supplier of Brewdog, To Øl, Mikkeller and various random American beers and Icelandic beers, and he's a really nice little family run news agent. So if you're watching from the Aberdeenshire area of Scotland, check them out. Very nice little family owned news agents and stuff. So as you can see, I'll just reposition the light so you can get a nice idea of the colour of this beer. I'll bring up the camera to check that you're seeing that. Just set this back, it's in a nice position there. As you can see, this beer has poured a really bright yellowy orange amber colour. It's got a solid 2 fingers of quite a bumpy, slightly off-white head actually, more of a creamy coloured head than a white one. There is a good bit of carbonation just going up to the bottom of the head there, which is quite interesting. So we'll see what this guy's like in terms of the aroma. But it's very hoppy, which is what you would expect from from Mikkeller, of course. So you've got a nice kind of freshness about it actually. A lot of kind of citrus and grapefruit coming out. The grapefruit, you're mainly getting a more of the sort of sourish notes that you expect from grapefruit in this one. That's what's sticking out with this beer. There's a little bit of sort of grassy and aromatic character to the hops as well, and some kind of pine resins. I'm not really picking up very much of a sort of malt base on this one. Does seem to be more of a hop forward aroma than this guy. I'm not even picking up any. There could just be a little sort of hint of sort of white bread and yeast and stuff, but very faint. If anything, it's overpowered by the sort of citrusy and grapefruit and the grassy character of this beer. The aromatic character, I should point out, is quite faint. It is mainly the sort of citric and grapefruit notes that are coming out on this guy. But let's give it a taste and see how we get on then. So this is the Mikkellerberger one, which was the Mikkellerberger from Mikkeller, brewed for the Mikkellerberger Hotel in Berlin in Germany. So cheers. Now, first impression of this one is that it's actually very highly carbonated. It comes in with quite a bit of an attack on it. But it's got a nice juicy fruity character to it. It's actually, the first impression of this one is that it's very, very light bodied in comparison with some of the other sort of American pale ales that I've had from these guys. A lot of them, while they can be quite mid-bodied, they do have, it's almost as if they're just a tiny little bit oily, and this one doesn't have that. It's a very, very wet feel to it. It's got quite a bit of bitter character at the start of it. I mean, there's a lot of orange and kind of mandarins to it, but they're kind of quite mild. The grapefruit is coming out just a little bit more and blending with it quite well. And there's maybe a little bit of peach in there, but again, it's not very sharp. The fruit flavour in this isn't too punchy. It is kind of quite mild, but perhaps it's the carbonation, the level of carbonation in this that's masking that slightly. Maybe you would get it a little bit more. The flavour comes in and then disappears very quickly to this kind of bready, slightly yeasty character. This one, the flavour, it's unusual in the fact that this flavour disappears quite quickly. It is quite resinous though. I mean, the pine resin is sort of sticking into the aftertaste there, and you're just getting this nice kind of grassy, aromatic, pine resiny freshness at the end of this one. But the malt character in terms of the flavour of the actual beer is quite small. It's more in the aftertaste that it's coming out. The fruit flavours, definitely a little bit of orange and mandarin in there. A little bit of peach as well. The grapefruit is actually quite mild. Whether that's mixing a little bit more with the pine resin or not, that's maybe something that it is doing, and it's just kind of masking it a bit. The fruit flavour, as I say, just disappears very quickly, and you get this kind of aromatic-y, grassy character out of it. So for all the kind of hops that it has in it, they maybe cancel each other out just a little bit too much. But yeah, it's not, in terms of an American pale ale, it's not quite as fruity as you would expect. I mean, it maybe has a little bit more of a kind of English pale ale feel to it, in fact, because you really expect the American pale ales to be like really fruity at the same time. It does have the bitter character to it, and a little bit of the grassy character that you expect. But the fruits seem to be kind of masked quite a bit in this one, as I say. Yeah, it's definitely more of a grassy, aromatic character that's in this one more than anything. So I mean, in terms of the body with this one, as I say, it's very light bodied, not even pushing the mid barrier, very light bodied on this one. It's got quite a bit of good carbonation in there. It's not really, there's a teeny little bit of an oily element to it, but overall it's a very, very wet mouthfeel. It does have just a little bit of juiciness to it as well, and maybe it's just that's where the sort of fruit character is blending together really well. there is just a little bit of kind of citricy character from the grassiness that the hops bring out. That just comes out on this little, you get this wet feel coming over the tongue, and you just get the little bubble at the front of the tongue. You've heard me talk about that a few times, and that's bringing out just a little bit of citric character, maybe mixed with a little bit of the kind of sourness that you expect from the grapefruit. But overall, I mean, it's an interesting enough beer. It's, from when you think about all the hops that are in it, it should be a very kind of fruity one. I'm just trying to remember what's in this. I mean, it has quite a bit of, it has Simcoe in it and Citra. And Simcoe, from what I remember, is kind of gives you a lot of that kind of grassy and aromatic-y spice in it. And I mean, Amarillo is a little bit more orangey and sort of orangey and grapefruit citric character you expect from that. So it's almost as the fruity character is quite odd that it doesn't come out a little bit more in this beer when it has all those hops. Nelson Sauvin is very good for fruity character too, so I'm a little bit confused as to why it is more of a grassy aromatic-y one than anything else. But I mean, it's a nice enough beer. It kind of ticks all the boxes in being refreshing. It is quite a sessionable one, this. Quite a sessionable IPA. It's not more of a tasting one. It's quite simple in that sense, just with this grassy aromatic character. But overall, I mean, you know, everything you'll get from Mikkeller is very good. This one's quite interesting. Perhaps not as good as some of the other stuff you would expect from Mikkeller, but it's an interesting beer to try nonetheless when you have all these hops in it and they seem to blend together in this interesting way. So if you do get the chance, give this beer a try and see what you think. And as always, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. I hope you found my review informative of this one. I feel I've rambled a little bit with it, but I hope it's been informative nonetheless. And please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. There will be more Mikkeller reviews for you to follow in the very near future, and more Toul as well. So if you like Danish Gypsy beer, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers!